Because she said it completely deadpan. Did you notice that on TV? I rewinded it because I saw it on Hulu. I was like, no way she's saying this.
Everyone is, like, focused on how poorly Ency handled the situation. But, like, Andrew shouldn't get off scot-free here. Hi, we're Kelly and Julie, and we're here to find love. Today we're doing a Bachelor in Paradise 2022 recap, Season 8, Episode 13 and 14. This week's 2 episodes had a lot of storyline development, a lot of couples getting into conflict. It seems like everyone, all of the people on this beach just really suck at dating, like maybe more so than on a typical season of The Bachelor or Bachelor in Paradise. We're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk about Justin and Eliza's breakup, talk about this question of age gap relationships. We'll talk about Kate and Logan's just deteriorating relationship, and then the whole mess with Andrew, Jessenia, and Ency. So let's get into it.
So this Monday's episode, the biggest point of contention for everybody was on the beach, was mourning the loss, the disappearance, the Rodney walking away. It honestly felt like someone died on the beach. The energy was so low. People were crying. Men were questioning if love existed for them. Like, it was just honestly the most bizarre thing I've seen on television in a very long time. Because I do know that Rodney is the man. He is definitely, you know, someone that brings a lot of light and energy on the show. But people, get a grip on yourselves. Like, for Andrew to question if love exists for him because Rodney didn't get it, it just really made me think about, like, Rodney is an amazing person, but he is not owed love because he is a great person. And I really just have to kind of have criticism towards him in this particular point, because I do think that he saw something in Eliza that she did not consent to with him. And he put her in a love story that she did not opt into as well. So I really had a problem with people on the beach being like, you know what, Rodney would have chosen Eliza every single day. Justin's not going to do that. Spoiler alert, he didn't. So Brandon was right, but still, like, you can't dog her because she didn't want a long-term relationship with your homie. She's entitled to her journey. It doesn't matter how incredible and how loving and how much Rodney can give to his partner. He is not entitled to her and to her life and her dreams because he's simply a good guy. It really just felt like the nice guy stereotype in a different way. Apologies, guys. My voice is a little bit scratchy because I'm a little sick, so that's what you're noticing. I feel like I'm just, like, grading along. But I really just feel like Rodney and Eliza and how everyone treated that conversation on the beach was a little bit gross to watch, of them just being like, you know, Eliza doesn't know what a good thing is. And I honestly don't think Rodney was the better choice for her. I don't think any of these choices were the right choice for her based on who she is and what she wants. And for them to make it seem like, you know, Eliza doesn't know good love because she didn't choose Rodney was just a joke for me to watch.
Yeah, that's a really wise point. And it wasn't just the people on the beach. It was also everyone on the internet has been dogging Eliza for not choosing Rodney. And you're right. It's like, at the end of the day, if she wasn't into him, she wasn't into him. Like, we can't force her to be with him just because he's a great guy, right? It's, you know, she can only go with what is in her heart, and if she wasn't feeling it, she wasn't feeling it. The only thing I will say is that I just wish, and she's on her journey and she'll figure it out, but, you know, the pitfall, I think, isn't that she didn't choose Rodney specifically. I think the main pitfall for her is more that she seems to be chasing that high, that feeling of a high, more so than she is chasing security. And I think if she was chasing security in a relationship, then Rodney probably would have emerged as a better choice for her. But that's not where she is. That's not what she's looking for right now. She's not looking clearly for a secure relationship. And so who are we to say who she should or shouldn't be with, right? She knows what she is interested in right now and at this time. I mean, unfortunately, the choice that she made did kind of land her in a bad spot because Justin wasn't interested, right? We got into the Justin and Eliza reunion moment. Eliza appears at Justin's door. She's so excited to kind of tell him that she dumped Rodney to come chase after him. And Justin is kind of like, nah. Like, Justin kind of shoots her down. And, God, I think my voice is scratchy, too. I gotta...
Oh, no.
Honestly, I just feel sad for Eliza that based on what she did prioritize in relationships, she ended up chasing this guy who clearly at the end of the day wasn't that interested in her. I do have a little beef with Justin and his little speech that he made when he was letting her down. He was like, I'm choosing myself. I think I need to choose myself now. I deserve someone who chooses me first. I was like, shut up, Justin. Like, the truth is, I think you were just not really that into her, so I don't know why he had to make up this, like, weird excuse about choosing myself, like, instead of just being honest, which is just that he didn't want to date her that much. You know, I think that he liked her on the beach because, you know, she's super hot. She's clearly someone who's very fun to date because her personality is so bubbly. She's just, I don't know. And she was also like his ticket to stay in Paradise, so of course he would be all in on her when they were on Paradise. But I think outside of that context, to me, it's not a surprise that the magic wore off for him, especially given that her like mistake of picking Rodney over him is what sent him home. It's like his whole Paradise experience ended because of her. And they didn't really have that much of a deep emotional connection in Paradise. It was like fun, it was the vibes, it was the physicality like we talked about. So to me, it's like not surprising at all that Justin wouldn't be that interested in pursuing something more with Eliza. Now, granted, I feel like his mind could change if they meet again at like 1 a.m. at the club. And like he's like hanging out with her and he suddenly realizes, oh, I forgot she's so fun to be around. Like I feel like his mind could be changed. But I think in that moment, it's like kind of like his ego was bruised or he was upset that he had to leave Paradise because of her. And I don't like that he had to make up this whole story about having to choose himself. Especially in Eliza's case, it was clear that she chose Rodney mostly because she felt pressured to do so by the group and because she felt loyal to him because she was dating him, you know, already for a longer time before Justin came along. And so to me, that whole thing about being chosen first, it didn't even make sense in this scenario with Eliza because, first of all, being chosen first doesn't mean someone likes you more or is going to be more committed to you. It's really just an ego boost, honestly. Like, it's like, it doesn't mean anything to be chosen first by someone. As you said, people are on their journeys. There are different things that they need at different times, different things that they're looking for at different times. And on the beach, you know, what seemed to make sense to her was to be with Rodney, and for her to then decide that she didn't want to be with Rodney and decide that she wanted to pursue things with Justin doesn't mean that she liked Justin less. And so I don't know why he had to almost like make her feel bad about making that mistake. I don't know why he had to. It's like, you want to be chosen first, maybe don't go for a woman who's already dating someone else and then act like she's a bad person for not dumping a man she loves for you more quickly. Like, it's obviously going to take her time to disentangle herself from that relationship. You chose to go after a woman who's already in a relationship, so that's on you. I don't know why you're making her feel bad for that. To me, I was just kind of like, I don't know why he had to like grandstand to her. I think if he's just not that into her, he's just not that into her. That's okay. Just say that. You don't have to like moralize about it.
Excellent point. And it was kind of, I mean, it wasn't funny, but the conversation lasted for 5 minutes and then Eliza was like, okay, well, bye. And I just think that in that whole conversation between everyone on the beach, Rodney, Eliza, Justin, all of them just had ideas about each other, the relationships they wanted to get into, and the conditions for that relationship. And if the person didn't step into it, if the person didn't agree to whatever weird imagination the person had by themselves individually, it wasn't something that they dreamt about together with the person. It was like, I will only be with Eliza if she chooses me at the rose ceremony, and if she doesn't, I'm not going to be with her. And Eliza thinking, if I make a big gesture, this means Justin will absolutely pick me. People have feelings. People have their ideas about doing things, and you can't force someone to just perfectly fit into this narrative that you created in your mind. So to me, that was just bad dating all around, and dating that's very common, I think, in relationships where there is an element of it's like emotional limitation almost. Like you just don't have the complexity to really believe that people can have all of these nuance to the way that they want to be with you.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was an amazing example of what that would look like playing out on TV. Like they just all would not negotiate with each other, and that's why they are all single.
Yeah, you're so right. They were doing this weird storylining thing. They were trying to fit the other person into this storyline that would make themselves feel better. Like all of them were doing that, right? And it's like, I'm sorry, guys, we're not in a TV show. I mean, I guess they are. They are on a TV show.
So say Kelly, they are.
But we're not in a movie. We're not in a scripted. We're not in a book. We're not in a storybook. We're not in a fantasy. Like, life isn't so cut and dry like that. People will make mistakes. People, will want things that maybe is not the healthiest for them, but that's just what they want. And people will have complicated feelings when they get slighted. They'll have complicated feelings. Like, there's just so much nuance in the way people actually move through the world, and to kind of cut people off because they didn't move in exactly the way you wanted them to move. It's a little immature, and it's cutting yourself off from the opportunity to connect with someone who could actually be a really good match for you solely because they didn't fit into like the storybook cutout that you had imagined for them. And it's like, now you're just wasting your own opportunities for connections with people because you're expecting them to fit into stencils that no humans will fit into. We're not characters. I'm sorry, but we're not characters in your books. And so you need to be able to be flexible and see people and recognize the nuances that people may have, and be able to deal with those, interface with those without just being like, oh, you didn't do this one thing, you're out for me. You didn't give me the rose at the rose ceremony, you're out for me. Oh, you didn't, I wasn't your first choice, you're out for me. It's like,
Yeah, that's what I mean, even Rodney, I have to call him into question here, because it's like, how amazing can this guy be if he wasn't able to clearly see the obvious hints that she was giving, especially when she was dating, playing the field of Justin a little bit, that she just did not like Rodney as much. And it really was Rodney being like, I'm the man, everyone, is my friend, people want to see me be in love, why can't I get the things that I want? Because people don't have to give it to you if they don't want to. That's free will. That's what people are entitled to. You're not entitled to someone's body, their anything that they have, just because you want it and because you do nice things, and you should fall in love.
Totally. Yeah. The only thing I will say about that is it feels like people on the beach did that more so than Rodney did. Like, I feel like everyone was like,
everyone did it.
Needs to pick Rodney. Like, I think it was like, I don't know if, because Rodney...
Gross.
I don't know if, like, Rodney was the one trying to, like, force her into the story, because it felt like as soon as she was, like, actually had feelings for Justin, he was like, but why? And then he was like, wait, no, you can just go do whatever. Like, he kind of, like, released, as soon as he realized that she was out, he would, like, released her. And so I actually think that it wasn't Rodney who was doing it. It was, like, everyone else on the beach was kind of, like, pressuring her into picking Rodney because he's nice, And I think there was, like, an owing that everyone expected from Eliza. And I think that's why she gave him the rose instead of the person that she actually wanted to give the rose to, which was Justin.
So what do you guys all think about this conversation that we have? Let us know in the comments down below about, like, the Justin, Eliza, Rodney of it all. We're very curious to see if you see it from our perspective, or if you do think Rodney's amazing and he did deserve Eliza. Because most of the people on the internet did. By the way, if you're new here, welcome. We're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, just like Bachelor in Paradise, what you're watching right now. So if you're into this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. Moving on to the next big topic on the beach was age gap relationships. So we did see Mara come down, Mara Marinara from Clayton's season, and everyone just immediately gave her this cougar association once again, because I think she's like 32. And, she goes on a date with one of the twins who's in his very early 20s. Flo was the girl that Mara had this weird catty situation with, I think Flo is like 31, 32, and then it cuts to all of these talking heads of everyone being like, they're cougars, these guys are so young, are they dropping them off at daycare? Danielle called Flo a crusty old sea hag, which was disgusting. That was frustrating to watch. That's not a funny joke. That's not a funny, cute quip that you're making on TV. That's not cute. Like, Mara being reduced to this sad, desperate woman when the twin didn't want to continue seeing her was ridiculous, because it didn't make it about her rejection. It made it about her stature in society and what she could offer people. And it just spoke a lot about ageism and just how problematic it is on the beach for any woman above the age of 28 to be seen as someone desirable, and that's someone that people would actually like. And I don't know, I really hated seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. And this is a very common theme in all of the Bachelor Nation shows. There's always this idea that women over the age of like 28 are considered cougars, or are like old has-beens. Even Claire, who got her own season at age 39, right? When she got her season, they like really played up her age a lot. Demi did that to like all the girls on her season. Her thing, she like made a whole stink because she was 23 on that season, and all the women who were like 30 or up, she was calling cougars. It was so annoying to me, and it just feels like this is like a theme that constantly is coming up, is this idea that women over the age of 30 are losing their desirability, or are not as, I don't know, hot and worthy, and are missing the boat. This is obviously not only in Bachelor Nation, this is also in our society, right? There's this idea that men, as they get older, get more valuable, and women, as they get older, get less valuable. This is an awful cultural like value system, and it's this weird intersection of ageism and misogyny. It's like this idea that younger women who are more malleable and childlike and whatever are more desirable, and as they get older and wiser and less likely to put up with bullshit, they're they're considered less desirable. And also, if you weren't scooped up young, you must be
something's wrong with you.
Something's wrong with you. Like, I don't even know how to parrot these ideas because they're so ridiculous to me. But yeah, this idea that something's wrong with you if you weren't married younger than the age of 30. It's super, honestly, just annoying. I know everyone on the beach is saying this in jest. They're just trying to joke around, but we always say it's like your words matter, and it's like you're repeating these harmful tropes and stereotypes and value systems that do impact the way women move through the world. I work with women across all age ranges, and it is like you feel the difference between when I'm working with a woman who is, in her 30s plus. It's like there's this sense that like they have to like explain themselves, or there's this like shame that they're carrying around for, being single in their 30s, 40s, 50s. And it's like, there's no shame in that. Like, your priorities were whatever they were in your 20s and in your, earlier 30s. And like, if now your priority is relationships, great. Like, I'm not like, there's nothing that you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to explain why you're dating or why you're single at this age or that age. Like, your journey is your journey. It goes back to what you were saying, Julie. And so it's just super annoying to me that this narrative is continually re-upped on this show, and everyone is doing it like as a joke, but it has an impact, right? It cuts deeper than that, and people all laugh along now, but then, you hit 35, or women who are 35 and are unmarried, and then you see the way that it begins to impact them, and it's like, well, it wouldn't impact them if we all culturally stopped repeating these terrible, harmful jokes about women at age X, right? It's like, if we stop repeating these jokes, then women in their 30s will not have to deal with this shame, will not have to deal with, this feeling that they may have that they are less than.
Yes, and you made such an amazing point about how we see youth and someone a little bit older. It's the fact that like they just like maybe men have this very awful misconception that if a woman is younger, it means they're just going to go along with whatever I say because they don't know themselves well enough. Maybe they validate themselves through external means. Whereas a woman that is older, guess what? As we become older, we take less bullshit. Like, we know what we want. We know the kind of men we're looking for, the kind of career that we want to have, and we have higher expectations, as we should. We all kind of do when we kind of just know more about ourselves as a person, whereas someone younger may not necessarily be in that exact place. That doesn't mean that there is a different value judgment on either person. It just really speaks to the expectations that they're putting onto the partners at that time. So I really do believe that there is a reason why, you know, some people are more afraid of older women. It's just because older women just know what they want, and they've dated enough people. They have gone through enough life experience to say, I don't want this experience, I want this experience, and I'm not going to date anyone that can't give me that. That's not them being this like old hag or crusty or dried up. Like, the comment that Danielle made just made me so upset because she said it completely deadpan. Did you notice that on TV? I rewinded it because I saw it on Hulu. I was like, no way she's saying this on TV right now. She's 36.
I was just
like,
36.
How dare you?
I was like, what is going on, Danielle? Like, why are you talking about people in this way? And
it's because she has a guy. I really believe she has Michael, so she just felt a little bit more superior to it. Yeah, I just didn't like to see it. I didn't like to hear it, and I'm glad that you're bringing it up, because the only way to really fight against stereotypes is to see it happening in real time and understand the history behind it, the harm that goes into that language, and just not perpetuate it. And when you hear about it, talk about it. Like, this is not okay to speak about women this way. Because I think Mara, her personality was amazing, but she came on the beach at a really bad time. And then the entire show just framed her as this pathetic woman that tried to get the attention of this like 21-year-old, and he wouldn't give it to her. So now this means that she's pathetic, that she is desperate. It was so icky to watch.
And by the way, let's also not forget that when men come down this beach and they are 30s, 40s, right, and they date younger women, no one makes any comments, right? Think of Joe the Grocer and Serena, right? Joe the Grocer was like 36 or something, and Serena was like 23 when they met on the beach. No one was making comments about Joe robbing the cradle, or Joe being like, oh, are you going to drop her off at daycare? No one was making comments like that about Joe. And so clearly this is so gendered. For some reason, it's like women in their 30s are old hags, but men in their 30s, oh, they're so cute, like they're mature. And like younger women, sure, fair game. Younger men, ooh, like desperate. It's like,
that's a great point. I think I remember the kind of what they would say about Serena, and it's like, I've never seen Joe light up this way. She's so effervescent. She's so youthful. She has such vitality. No, she doesn't. Like, she is just a person, and he happened to fall in love with her.
Right.
And they didn't make it about their age, because their age didn't really play a factor into it.
Right.
So, I mean, it is a factor, but it wasn't the main reason that they're together, obviously, because they're one of the only couples that have actually made it out of that beach and actually gotten married to each other. Right. So they were for real. But yeah, just watching that was another example of like everyone on this beach. I don't think any of them are ready to get married if that's the way that they talk about people, the way that they look at the world still. Just like, no. Please, guys, you guys are role models in some capacity as influencers. Like, act that way. Be a little bit more mature. Think a little bit before you speak, you know?
Totally. Gosh, as you were saying that, as you were talking about Joe the Grocer and Serena, it just really hit me. Like, it makes sense to me that people view older women as less desirable because we keep repeating it. We keep saying it. It's like, even in this conversation, I'm like, every time I say that's this ridiculous trope, I'm like cringing on the inside, because as I repeat it, it feels like I'm perpetuating it. And it's like, I just wish we would all stop it, versus like older men are kind of primed to be attracted to younger women because that is what they're taught to be attracted to culturally, right? Like we lift up the concept of youth in women, right? We lift up youth as the key barometer of what makes a woman attractive, one of many. I mean, we could get into all of that, but like that is one of the key barometers of what makes a woman attractive according to our society. And so it's no surprise that men dating younger women is so much more common than women dating younger men, because women are shamed for dating younger men, and younger men are kind of like, we keep talking about older women like they are these cougars, blah, blah, blah. So it's like we keep repeating these myths and they become our reality, right? It becomes how we feel, right? And I know so many women who are like, oh, I would never date a man younger than me. Ew, it's like they're babies. And like, I even kind of feel the same way. But then now as we're talking about it, I'm like, is it just because we keep repeating these myths? Like we keep repeating these stereotypes? Is that why I feel that way? That I would never want to date someone younger than, like a guy younger than me? Is that why I feel this way? And you know, I bet if we all really interrogated that, there's probably a lot of truth to the fact that we have just adopted these cultural narratives, all of these jokes that get repeated on national television. We internalize them, and we don't even realize that it's more that has programmed us than any like innate desire to date or not date people of a certain age. These things they cut deep. Like we soak it in. We may not realize that we're doing it, but we totally do. And so, yeah. Stop
it. Everyone, let's just cut it out. Like, let this conversation be a cultural touchstone for this kind of awful stereotyping to get into play. Because, I mean, I'm in an age gap relationship, but my partner is older than me. So, like, and you're right, I would never date someone that's significantly younger. And I do wonder if it's because of all of the things I've heard and I've internalized about what it means to date someone younger. Because as I'm even thinking about it, I just have this automatic thought that comes up that says, why would I date someone younger? They're so much more immature than me. They wouldn't be the same life experience as me. But I don't know that, and that's a really big generalization I'm making about people in general instead of just individually approaching people the way that they should be. So, yeah, this show definitely, and many things out there in contemporary media and like dating shows, just kind of like reinforce the stereotype further and further. And love is really much bigger than what we can even imagine it to look like. And if we just really expand past these filters that we have for ourselves, we could find ourselves in really beautiful dynamic couplings that we could have never imagined that could give us exactly what we want and the kind of experience and safety and security we've always desired if we just look past some of these things.
That was a really interesting conversation. I'll be so curious to know what everyone thinks. Leave some comments down below. What do you all think about, you know, older women dating younger men and that kind of dynamic, these stereotypes about older women? So let's move on to Kate and Logan, who continue to be sort of a centerpiece or a center storyline at this stage of Bachelor in Paradise. Kate continues to be truly just awful to Logan both in her in-the-moment interviews and to everyone she talks to on the beach. She's just so critical of him constantly. She's just, I need a man, not a boy. Can't believe he has a broken phone and drives X type of car. Like, everything that comes out of her mouth, it is, you know, condescending and looking down on him. Honestly, hearing her talk about him, I'm just like, it's like crossing a line for me. I'm like, I don't even like Logan, but it's like, you gotta chill out, girl. It is gross to me. But the thing that we wanted to talk about that I think is really interesting was this idea of exes coming in and taking the feedback of exes. So Gabby and Rachel show up. Gabby and Rachel have dated several of the men that are here on the beach this season. And specifically, Kate goes to them for some advice about the Logan situation. And I mean, it's ironic because she's clearly like the villain of their relationship.
She's the worst.
But it was interesting because Rachel and Gabby, first of all, they obviously don't know the dynamic that was playing out between Kate and Logan. So in their head, they're like, Logan sucked on our season and we're going to just tell you how much he sucked on our season. And so they were just playing it straight. But it brings up this interesting question of, to what extent should you be concerned about what your exes have to say about you? And we see Logan, like, he was really worrying, like, oh my God, are they going to tank my relationship with Kate? Like, what are they going to say about me? My reaction to it was a little bit like, well, I don't know, if you don't suck, then your exes won't have bad shit to say about you. If you treat people well, then, you know, you won't have to worry about how, you know, your exes are talking about you, because they won't have anything bad to say. Now, granted, of course, every relationship ends because either you're not seeing things the same way or you have different wants and different needs, but theoretically, relationships don't need to end in, like, sour ways where you both are, like, at odds with each other, right? And so Logan's sitting there kind of, like, concerned about what Gabby and Rachel would say about them, and it's like, well, you had the opportunity to patch up those relationships when they ended, and you didn't. And so, yeah, if they are going to go and say their piece, say the truth of what happened to them, then, I mean, those are your own actions that they're talking about. They're not making anything up. They're telling the truth about what happened. He was kind of acting like, oh no, I'm the victim in this. Like, these girls are going to trash talk me. But it's just, I don't know. I was just like, maybe you should have thought about that before you treated them the way that you did on their season.
Yeah, I thought that it was completely valid for Rachel and Gabby to have their opinions about Logan, because Logan really stirred up a lot of insecurities for the both of them on their season. The way that he was flip-flopping around, breaking up with one of them to pursue the other one, and then leaving under very mysterious conditions because of COVID. For him to be confused about what exactly they would say to Kate shows, like, whoa, Logan is just... Like, I think Gabby was really spot on in her assessment that he kind of gets off on having power, and he really gets off on, like, charming someone when he's in front of them. But after he has charmed them, it's kind of very similar to Kate, and this is why they've attracted each other, because they're just both, like, just awful people to date, honestly. They just both like the challenge, and as soon as the challenge is over, they're kind of on to the next thing. And that's why Kate and Logan are now really attracted to this relationship, in my opinion, as a dating coach. Genuinely, it's because it feels a little bit thrilling to not know where the other person stands, and the fact that, you know, Logan is a hot commodity and Kate is someone that, like, really doesn't let him get away with a lot of that stuff, and she's hot enough to, you know, make Logan actually listen to her. But it just really got me thinking that the way you are in relationships does say a lot about who you are as a person when you date, especially when it's so fresh. Because, I mean, you made a really excellent point about this before we started filming. You know, like, this was a few weeks ago. We went on the beach. Right. For some reason, I thought it was a year ago, but you were right.
Victoria,
it was, like, literally a month.
She was like, you can't be judged on your past experiences, because if you're judged on your past experiences, none of us would be here. And it's like, sure, that's true, but, like, this wasn't a long time ago. Like, Logan just got off of their season literally a couple weeks ago. Like, he's the same guy he was 4 weeks ago. Trust me. I don't think he's changed that much. Like, I don't know why.
You're so right. So, like, it was really funny how he was like, I'm a different person with Kate. It's not. You're the same person that you've dated in past relationships, unless you've gone through a period of reflection or growth. And it's clear that how he treated the woman on the beach, he hasn't, and it's not a failing on his part or an indictment on his character. It's just simply where he is at right now, and that means that anyone he dates will have to go through a lot of his immaturity and, like, the depth of his immaturity. So I thought that, like, I mean, I think this is true in any instance when you're dating someone. I don't believe in not talking to your partner about your exes. You want as much information as you can. You want to know how they acted, how they got in love, how they broke up, what were the kind of fights that you got into, because it's very likely that they will kind of go through the same patterns with you. At least if they're not super self-aware, then it's going to be a lot of repeats. Absolutely. So to me, I really liked Gabby and Rachel giving Kate the heads up. But to your point, Kelly, I experienced some weird cognitive dissonance because I'm not on Kate's side and I'm definitely not on Logan's side. The both of them straight up suck. Like, they're just... And I hate saying this on the show because I know that they're characters, but the way that they date is just so toxic and so unhealthy to watch. It literally hurts my soul to see them interact with each other or hurt people the way that they do. So I just felt so confused watching them because it's like very clear that Rachel and Gabby love Kate and they want to uplift Kate, but then they don't even have an opportunity to kind of spotlight the ways that Kate is doing Logan wrong in this relationship. So...
Right.
Yeah, it was a very confusing watch for me.
This is like something that's been happening on this season in general. It's kind of like everyone here seems to really suck at dating. Like everyone, it's like every pair. It's like it's Aaron and Genevieve. It's like both of them are like, they have so much problematic conflict behaviors, and it's like hard to really figure out who is more in the wrong, because they're both in the wrong often they both are doing things. Then it's like whoever does the worst thing is the one that everyone is like now gonna go in on and like kind of be like, oh, he's the problem in the relationship. And like that may be true, that really bad thing that he did was really bad, but that doesn't excuse all the bad things that she did. And I was just using Genevieve and Aaron as an example, but this is true across like all of these different relationships. Shanae and Logan, this was like another one. It was like both of them kind of sucked in their relationship, and it's like you're just kind of trying to figure out who sucks more, and then it's like, okay, you sucked a little bit more, so then, you know, Shanae is an angel now. And it's like, That's not really... Or like Justin, when Justin was dating Genevieve, it was like Genevieve sucked a little bit more, so now Justin can do no wrong. And it's like, no, Justin also sucked in that relationship. And so like I feel like this keeps happening in this season. It's like everyone is so bad at dating that you don't really know who to root for. Like this Logan and Kate thing, it's like, I don't know. I mean, Kate is obviously worse in this situation, but you know that I don't like Logan, and Logan has been awful to a lot of people, both in his season with Rachel and Gabby and here. Like, you know, with he kept taking Rachel's roses even after he knew that he wanted to pursue Gabby. That was shitty, and he never apologized for it. He never took any accountability for it. I was mad when he showed up on the beach. He continues to not take accountability for it. Now the girls come down, and he's like, well, I wonder what they're going to say about it. And it's like, it's so clear, I mean, to your point, that he has not changed, that he has not grown from his season. The fact that he would be confused about what they're going to say about him shows that he internalized nothing about what happened on that season and how he hurt those two women. Clearly, he has not grown at all. He does not understand what he did wrong in those situations, and that's why he's sitting there confused about, what are they going to say about me? It's because he hasn't changed. He didn't understand the situation. He doesn't understand how he hurt them and why what he did was wrong. And so it's not surprising to me that he is continuing to fumble here on this beach. It's not surprising to me that these girls are mad at him. I mean, and then again, it just like, but I continue to be confused because Kate's the one who's kind of fucking up the relationship. So it's so confusing. It's hard to know how to even really analyze this. It's hard to know who to root for. It's like, everyone is just it's a Suckosaurus Rex. I don't know. Like,
yes. Dude, you made an excellent point a few episodes ago where you're just like, they're self-selecting themselves out of the dating pool, and it's like, listen, I'm all about relationships where you grow, you learn, and you become your best selves with each other. But those two people, just get yourself out of the dating pool. You know, just get out of it. Just don't involve other people into this weird situation that you have going on, because it's just so unhealthy. Kate straight up was gaslighting Logan. She was like, I've never said a disparaging comment towards you. A lot of people talk about gaslighting, and I'm always like, no, you can't just throw that term around, you know. It's a very dangerous thing to say. Kate was doing it on the beach. Like,
100%.
Was I wrong in seeing that? That was wild.
No, she was... When have I ever criticized you? Cuts to a talking head of her like, he's a baby. I can't date a boy. The one thing I wanted to add about the Logan situation, too, is when Rachel and Gabby came down, talked to the group of girls, and then left with Kate. And then the girls were sitting there, they were like, I'm surprised that they had bad things to say about Logan. Logan's been great to us here on the beach. And it's like, the girls who were saying that were not the girls who had dated him. right? It was like Danielle and Victoria.
You're right.
The girls who have not dated him versus Shanae, Sarah, all the girls who actually were dating him, Kate, everyone else who dated him were like, oh, no, he's awful in XYZ ways. Meanwhile, all the girls who didn't date him were like, oh, he's so nice to us. He seems really sweet. And it's like, I hate it when people do this. It's like, you didn't date him, so why are you acting like you know what he's like in a relationship? Of course he's sweet to you. He's not trying to date you. We say this a lot. I feel like people don't want to believe that, you know, someone that they like could possibly be mean to, like, a girl in a relationship. They want to believe that, like, oh, he's my friend. He's always been nice to me. I can't imagine him ever doing that to her. Like, she must be crazy. And it's like, what is confusing to you about the fact that people are different in different relationships when they want something else out of the person, right? Why is that hard for us to understand? The way that I mean, hopefully I'm nice to everyone, but, like, obviously the things that the version of me that Bert gets to see is different from the version of me that everyone else sees, right? And that's just the truth, right? Because I'm intimate with Bert, and he, you know, we go through all of the things, the ups and the downs, and, you know, he sees a fuller version of me than anyone else sees. And so I don't know why these girls who are not dating Logan act like they know him. That really bugged me. And who was it? I can't remember who said this. Someone said this thing of, like, maybe he was not so great with those other girls, but, you know, that's okay. Only one person is your soulmate. It only has to work with one person. It's like, what? Like, it's super weird, this idea that, well, if he was bad to all these other people, that's okay. He only needs to find one girl that he can be nice to, and then it's fine. It's like, no, I'm sorry. You need to be, like, you need to be good to people in all your relationships. And if you are making bullshit in your past relationships, I'm sorry. That's going to come up in the relationships that you are in the future, as you said, Julie. But everyone had just such bad takes about this. I was just like, everything everyone said, I was like, no, definitely no. Like,
I'm so glad you brought that point up, and shout out to Bert, because Bert's awesome. But it was the point that you made about, like, yeah, as long as you're fine to your one person, the one person that you love the most, it's okay that you were a jerk the entire rest of your dating history. That's basically what it says. And it calls into this, like, mythology that it only has to work out that one person, that it doesn't matter the other people you dated on your journey if you found the one. And to do that is to diminish all of the other really amazing, beautiful connections you've made. Yeah. The people that you said, I love you to, the people that you shared your life with, the people that you thought forever could be a possibility with them. It's just putting that all away and saying that isn't as worthwhile as this one love, as if you could rank it, as if you could stack it, as if there's a hierarchy of the way that you can treat people. And that's just it's not healthy, and it really, once again, opens the door for really toxic dating, because you think, I will be the right person for my husband, for my wife, for my soulmate, for the future father of my kids. Why can't you just do that now with the person that you're dating? Why do you have to wait for a few years down the line? And what makes you think that you're going to be different?
Yeah,
if you're not actively working on it, you know?
Exactly.
So let's think about it, everybody, because, like, no one on the beaches, and it fills me with, like, a white hot rage. I honestly get really upset watching it, because it's like, this is what happens. This is how people get hurt online dating. This is why people hate it. This is why it's hard to find partners.
Exactly.
Why cheating happens. It's just like, let's think about it.
So right. I hate this attitude of, like, if I fucked up in all my past relationships, well, eventually I'll find someone who makes me not want to be an evil dickhead. And it's like, why don't you just fix that in yourself first and stop hurting all these people? Like, why can't
you just be it now? Like, why do you have to wait
for someone to change you? No, change yourself. Like, Jesus. Like, it's just, there's so much wrong with that ideology. There's so much wrong with, I can't remember who said it. It might have been Victoria. Victoria's been saying a lot of bullshit.
Victoria's been saying a lot. Like, I love her, but it's only because she's like extremely hot, but every episode she's been in, I'm like, girl, shut your mouth. What you're saying is not good. It's honestly not good.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like people will say, it's like she'll say that, or Eliza, Danielle, everyone says something, they'll say something about relationships and they think they're being so wise. They're like, only one person is your soulmate. It only has to work out with one person. And they say it and they think they've mic dropped. And I'm like, gosh, we got a long way to go. That's how I feel watching this season. I'm like, we have a long way to go before dating.
That's what I think,
whole,
dude.
Like dating culture, we have a long way to go before it improves for all boats. It feels like there is a lot of weird, chaotic thinking that is alive and present right now in dating culture.
Is that just me? I feel like, I mean, every Bachelor in Paradise Bachelor show, there's always a lot of cringe associated with watching it. But doesn't the season feel particularly toxic? More so than any other season that we've seen? Because it does feel like, okay, social media is out there. There's more access to like mental health resources. There's more of an understanding about the ways that we're being perceived and treating people. But yet, it's not making a meaningful dent in the way. It's not getting better. I'm just like, how is it possible? Victoria is failing us. Like, everyone on the show is, like, Brandon and Serene are not even getting a moment to be on the show. And they have a version of healthy love that would be really good for people to see if it's not a little bit stable. But we're not even getting an opportunity to really see that. We're seeing Genevieve and Aaron fight about itching versus pain. We're seeing Kate and Logan try to like one-up each other's crappiness. It's really at an all-time high.
You mean all-time low?
Yeah. Yes, the bar is so low. I am face planting.
Yeah.
Like I'm walking and I'm tripping. Tripping.
Yes, exactly.
6 feet under.
That is exactly what
I'm
this
low.
season feels like.
And it is so much fun to talk about it with you, but it's like, how are they this toxic? And they genuinely believe it. Like, how can they really think that they're ready for marriage if this is how they see relationships, you know?
Well, it's funny because, like, a weird thing is also happening. I think, specifically, I'm seeing this in this season. There's a weird thing happening where it almost is like people think that they know a lot about healthy relationships. Like, you keep seeing, like, Aaron does this. Like, he'll be like, no, I know. Like, trust me, Genevieve. Like,
Aaron
I know
sucks
that
too.
stress is the same as, what was the other feeling? Annoyance, whatever she was saying. Well, before they got, he was using the itching and pain thing as, like, a metaphor for what she was saying. She was like, I feel really impatient. And he was like, oh, you're just stressed out. And she's like, no, it's not stress. It's more like annoyance. And he was like, those are the same thing. And she was like, they're not the same thing. And then he was like, it's like itching or pain, right? Like itching is pain in a low level. And then and she was like, they're not the same. And then he was like, yes, they are. And he starts yelling at her and they like explode over this weird metaphor. But the thing that started it all was he was trying to tell Genevieve, like, no, what you're feeling is stress. Trust me, I know. And it's like, what do you know? It's her feeling. Like, you know, she'll tell you what she's feeling. And so
this always happens to Genevieve too. Like, she just tries to talk about her feelings and a man immediately invalidates
comes in and just says like, no, your feelings are stupid, or you think you're feeling this but you're feeling that, or
you have no idea. I know.
You have no idea. Trust me, I know. We all know you're upset, Genevieve. We all know. And it's like, what is everyone doing? Let the girl have her feelings. Why are you all... Anyways, it just, to me, it just feels like people on this show, everyone's acting like they know. Victoria dropping her little one-liners that are actually not wise at all. Like, it's like people are throwing around words like gaslighting all the time. Like, everyone, I think, thinks that they know. Justin is another great example. Like, the way that he was talking to Genevieve, it was almost like it was like, you have, like, a lot of growing up to do. Like, in that relationship, his dynamic with her was very, like, condescending, honestly. He was like, for you to not...
Super condescending.
Like, for you to... Your expectations are X, and, like, I deserve X. Like, everyone is, like... It's almost like everyone's, like, spitting out one-liners. I'm choosing myself now. Everyone's spitting out these one-liners that they see on Instagram. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like everyone thinks that they know more about relationships, but then it's, like, they have like these phrases that they've learned to use, but the wisdom is not there. It's like they're like saying the words, but they are like applying them in the most toxic ways.
Yes, that's such an amazing point. And I think the biggest takeaway from this episode is what you were saying. It's one thing to intellectualize something. It's one thing to read about it on Instagram, because I bet that's where they're getting 90% of their therapeutic resources. Right. You know, it's just like through these like mental health therapists that they are internalizing everything. But it's another thing to actually practice healthy communication and to really hold space for people, and none of them are really able to do that. I just like really shudder to think about the people that are watching this show and maybe not thinking about it in a more like critical way, and it's just being like absorbed through osmosis, like all of these unhealthy themes, and then they start to believe things in their head.
So sad. Stop.
You know,
I know exactly what you're saying. I know. Well, speaking of toxic dynamics, let's get into Andrew, Ency, and Jessenia.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly, this is another one where I was watching it and I just had no idea what was happening. Because we see the Sadie Hawkins dance. Becca and Thomas come down to the beach and they made a very cute request for the girls to ask out the guys and then for them to just have a really fun night, or so they think. And then Jessenia pulls Andrew, and then they have a very long conversation about something I don't quite understand. Ency tries to pull away Andrew several times. I just didn't know what was happening. Like, what did you think? I still don't really know how I feel about that whole situation.
Okay, let me give you a play-by-play, because I think I followed the train of thought, at least as presented. Again, as always, it's like hard to know because we only see so much, but like as presented, this is what I believe happened. So Jessenia pulls Andrew, and this is where things already start off wrong. Andrew and Ency are like playing a game. They're playing like one of those like toss, like cornhole type games or something. They're playing a game. Jessenia comes up to Andrew and she says, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And Andrew's like, "Yeah," and he just walks away with Jessenia when he's in the middle of like a game with Ency. And as soon as, this is before any conversations even happened, but as soon as that happened, I was like, he didn't even say anything to Ency. He didn't even say like, "Give me a second, I need to go have a conversation." He just walked away. It was like they were in the middle of a conversation and he just like just disappeared. I was like, you're not going to say anything to her as she leaves? So that was already the first thing. I was like, ooh, if I was Ency, I would be mad at Andrew too. Because it's, and first of all, it's not anyone just walked up and pulled him away. It was, of course, Jessenia, the girl he was dating before. So for him to just like be basically in conversation with Ency, his ex walks up and asks him to walk away, and he just like doesn't even look at Ency. He just walks away without saying a word to her. I was like, what the heck was that, Andrew? I don't know. I'm not sure like what he was thinking, or he was just like so stressed out that Jessenia wanted to talk to him that he like forgot about Ency. But like, again, that speaks volumes. If I was Ency, I would be upset too. I would be just so confused as to why I was just randomly abandoned. All he had to do was say like, "Hey, give me a second." That's all he had to do. Like, make a gesture like, "Hey, I'll be right back." But he like literally didn't even look at her, didn't make eye contact, just walked away with Jessenia. So I was already like, what the heck was that? And then Andrew and Jessenia go into a conversation. Jessenia, let me preface this by saying, I think all three of these three just handled this situation extremely poorly. I'm not on anyone's side.
Yes.
I think everyone did this really, really poorly. We get to the conversation with Andrew and Jessenia rightfully has some beef with Andrew because it seems like essentially Andrew strung her along. Like, he kind of made it seem like they were moving toward a relationship. That was clearly what Jessenia was seeing this as. She was very clear since like 2 weeks ago or something that she really liked him. She was being very upfront about that. And you can see that Andrew has just kind of been like rolling along with it, even though he hasn't been feeling it. He said to, I think it was Mara, when Mara came down and pulled Andrew initially, Andrew was like, "Yeah, I guess I think I'm in a relationship." Like, the way he talked about Jessenia was so clear that he was like lukewarm on her. So then in this conversation, for Jessenia to be upset at Andrew, I think is very justified, because it does seem like he was not being very clear with her. He was like, "Oh no, I just couldn't get there with you." And it's like, boy.
Right.
Were you ever going to tell her that, or were you just taking her roses until someone more interesting came down the beach? Because, like, to me, I don't understand why he was continuing to waste her time if he was not feeling it with her. And so I think Jessenia was rightfully upset. However, she comes into the conversation, she pulls him aside and she goes, so are you really here for love? It's like, Jessenia, what the fuck? What? Of course he's here for love. She's like, why do you have this track record of dating all these women? And it's like, she's like, you're just hopping around from woman to woman. I don't think you're really here for love. And it's like, Jessenia, you have a good reason to be upset at Andrew, but this ain't it. I don't know why you're here criticizing his history of, like, all the girls he's dated on the beach. He's dated lots of girls on the beach because it's paradise. That's what you're supposed to do. He's trying to figure out who he has a connection with. It's not weird that he's dating a lot of girls. But she came in with this, like, really weird sideways way of getting into the conversation. Eventually, she started to get into, I feel like you strung me along, which I think was valid. But, like, she, like, had already got him all riled up and, like, clearly he felt like he was, like, being attacked, which he was. And so she had already gotten him all riled up by the time that she brought up her real point, which is that she felt used, which I think that she was. So it was like she had a valid concern, but she brought it up in the worst way possible that got him all activated. Meanwhile, I do think that he strung her along. I do think that he was dismissive towards Ency, but then at the same time, both of these girls are, like, kind of coming in this really aggressive way toward him. So I'm not even surprised that he starts, like, freaking out and, like, can't. It's like same thing. All three of them are being so awful that I'm like, I don't even know who to root for, because they all sucked so much in this conversation. Like, they all really handled this so poorly. Then Ency comes back up and she's like, stop giving her validation by talking to her for so long. It's like, what? The guy needs to finish his conversation. Leave him alone. Like, let him wrap up their convo. Like, clearly her, like, insecurities were just showing, and she was just like, I don't know, she was just, like, trying to, like, possess him or something. There was something really weird happening in her mind as far as how she was interpreting his decision to talk to Jessenia. However, I do understand why Ency was upset, because, like I said, he was being pretty dismissive when he originally went to go talk to Jessenia. And then when Ency came up, even the first time that Ency came up, she came up and she was just like, hey, can I pull you for a second? Before she started going on her weird, like, ultimatum spew, first she just walked up to him and she was like, can I pull you aside? And he was like, he kind of, like, he's like, get off of me. Like, his, like, body language was like, I need to finish this conversation. He was kind of, like, pushing her off a little bit. Like, his body language was so just, like, dismissive and, like, get away from me. And, like, if I was Ency, I would be upset too. Just, like, this guy who I've been, like, I went on this date with, who'd been hanging out all night, and then all of a sudden Jessenia pulls him and it's like, I don't exist. I would be a little bit upset as well. Now, does he need to have his conversation? Yes. So, like, she needed to let him have the conversation, but I understand why she was upset. So it's like everyone was kind of a bad actor here. Like, it kind of, like, this was my interpretation of this series of events. That's, like, how I was seeing everyone. It was kind of like everything that everyone did. I was like, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Like, everyone was just being so awful. No one handled this well.
That does make a lot more sense, because when I was watching it, I just kind of thought, I mean, first off, Ency making that demand, or I would say she was trying to control Andrew's behavior of just, like, if you like me, you're going to walk away from this conversation right now. Yeah, that was so weird. That was really weird, because they've only known each other for a day, a few hours, like 24 hours. It can't have been a significant amount of time. I really do believe that what you do for someone is an investment, and it's proportional to how much you like someone. The more you like someone, the more you're willing to do a lot of things for them. Mm-hmm. If he really liked Ency, he would have walked away from the conversation of Jessenia and said something to Ency first. But I do think this speaks a lot to Andrew's state of mind. I thought that the only really big thought that I had in that entire conversation was just how crappy it was for him to tell Jessenia, it's always been Teddy. And I have been trying with every other connection, but I have felt nothing crazy compared to what it was of Teddy.
Those are his words. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah. And honestly, that's one of the worst things you could really say to someone is that, by the way, that person that you thought was a threat, yeah, she not only was she a threat, but she was the one that got away. She is a person that I romanticize. She's a person that I still think about. She's a person that I have been comparing you to. And guess what? You don't measure up. And no one on this beach does, and I have to go. That invalidates their entire relationship. It props up Teddy on a pedestal that honestly she doesn't deserve to be on. No woman deserves to be on a pedestal where a 4-day romantic experience at the height of paradise and everything was super fun and exciting. Like, of course, nothing is going to compare to that, like, really glossy version of infatuation you had with someone. Now that, like, what was more real was his connection of Jessenia. Weeks and weeks of, like, dating someone. Or even his connection of Ency, where Ency was really vulnerable and she was trying to get him to stay. It wasn't right, but I think she really tried to show Andrew, I like you a lot, and this is what I'm willing to do for you. Andrew, I mean, he was the one at the beginning of the episode that I was talking about. After Rodney left, he said, I just don't know if love exists anymore. And I think that just says everything about his state of mind. I'm happy he got off the beach, and I just genuinely believe that he just didn't like either of those girls enough to go through any more pain of his confusion. But it's like, did you have to wait for it to get to that point before you realized it, Andrew? Like, well, come on.
That's the thing. He was like, I've been honest to everyone. I've tried to be open and honest. It's like, no, you haven't. Don't say you were open and honest. Don't sit there and play the victim. Oh, I've been honest to everyone. Everyone is asking so much of me. It's like, Andrew, don't say you've been honest. You've been thinking about Teddy this whole time, and it only came out now, long after, like, she has been gone. You've been with Jessenia for the last, like, 2-3 weeks or something, and you've not said anything to Jessenia about the fact that you've been thinking about another woman. Do not say that you've been open and honest. You have not been open and honest with anybody here. I think the internet, too, is another situation where it's like Jessenia and Ency in particular. Ency was being so extreme in that situation that everyone is, like, focused on how poorly Ency handled the situation that Andrew was kind of like, right. And it wasn't good. I mean, I got lots to say about Ency, too. But, like, Andrew shouldn't get off scot-free here because he really was not honest with these women that he was dating. He was rude and dismissive to Ency even before she started panicking. Once she started panicking, I was like, all right, Ency, you gotta clean up your act a little bit. But before she started panicking, he was already being rude and dismissive to her. And I don't know, was he just taking Jessenia's roses all along, waiting for someone else to come down the beach? Because that's what it feels like to me. Because if he was not crazy about Jessenia this whole time, why didn't it not come out earlier? Why did it only come out when Ency came down the beach? Like, to me, I think Jessenia is rightfully upset with Andrew. It does feel like he wasted her time, and she could have been pursuing other options if she had known that Andrew was not crazy about her. So don't say that you were honest with everyone, because you were everything but honest with people.
Exactly. I felt like, I'm very excited to see what you have to say about Ency, because I felt like a lot of my complaints were really focused on Andrew, because I just think about how awful it would feel for Jessenia to, Jessenia was also not coming off great in that conversation, the way that she was wasn't. Just blaming him for things and not able to get to a point. So she was kind of like cutting him down. But it's heartbreaking to hear the entire experience you had on Paradise. None of it was real.
None of it was real.
Yeah, I have been comparing you to like another woman, and you fall short. Extremely short.
I feel so bad for her. I really do think that she was kind of swept up in Andrew's bullshit, and for him to say that he was being honest with her. If he was being honest with her, she wouldn't have been sticking around pursuing him this whole time. So clearly she was not being made aware of what was going on in his mind. So I was like really honestly upset with Andrew's behavior in that conversation. And I think that he walked away being like, wow, I've really been through it. Like, I have been open and honest with everyone. Everyone's attacking me. Everyone's making me out to be this bad guy. And it's like, kind of walked away feeling very self-righteous.
Can someone take accountability on the beach? My God.
Seriously. It's like, it's so frustrating.
It's not hard, guys.
I know. And it's like, it's hard to, even when Ency later, in their last conversation when he was trying to end things with Ency, granted, I don't think she should have begged the way that she did. I got a lot of thoughts about that. But, like, what she says to him is, she brings up, she's like, Jessenia goes and pulls you and you don't even look at me. You just, like, walk away when we're in the middle of a game, we're in the middle of a conversation. You just, like, left me there. And he goes, that's just how I am. She was needing to talk to me and I had to focus on the person who was upset. That's just who I am. So he didn't even apologize for what he... And so he was like, it hurt my feelings when you just left me when we were in the middle of a conversation. We were in the middle of a game. And he was like, that's just who I am. I was like, ew. Like, ew. I'm sorry. Like, if someone that you are dating in theory, but anyone tells you, hey, your behavior hurt me when you did X, your response is not, that's just who I am, sorry. And it just shows
Deal
that
with
Andrew...
it.
I know! It's like, all right, Andrew, I see that you're not going to change and grow at all after this experience. Like, clearly you are just convinced that you can do no wrong, when clearly you did do something hurtful to Ency. Do I think Ency handled the situation well afterwards? No, not at all. But I do think that Andrew, his attitude of, like, you know, this is just how I am. I've been really upset. You should all have to, like, put up with it. You should all just have to, like, accept the fact that this is just how I behave. I don't like that. That's not, you know, that's not really the kind of person that you want to date. And what he said didn't even make sense, because his point was like, oh, I was just focusing on the person who was upset. She had to talk to me, so I was focused on her. That didn't even make sense, because then when he was in the conversation with Jessenia and Ency comes up and Ency does the same thing that Jessenia does, which is, hey, can I pull you for a second?
He's like,
in theory, if Andrew focuses on who's most upset, then he should have been like, oh yeah, let me go talk to Ency now. So that's not even true. So he is like, he says that he's being honest, but he's not. Like, I think that he will make any excuse to rectify his own, like, self-image and make himself look like the good guy. Like, I think he is doing something like that in his head. But this kind of conflict, to me, I was like, ooh, he would be a really hard person to date, because whatever he's focused on, that's what's important. And I'm sorry, if you have needs, it just doesn't matter. Your needs don't matter. This is how I am. Like, that is not the kind of attitude of someone that you want to be dating.
The last point I will make about Andrew, too, is how he left the conversation was dropping a bomb and taking 2 girls with him. He went home and he didn't even really have an opportunity to tidy up the conversation of any of them. He was just, like, pushing everyone aside. I'm good, I'm going home. And I think, you know, it's really tough to stay in a room. It's really tough to stay in a conversation and admit, this is what I did wrong. This is where I was dishonest. This is where I could have done better. I'm sorry. But he didn't do that. Instead, he was like, I need to do what's best of me. There's nothing on this beach anymore. I just need to go home at all cost. And he just didn't self-soothe them after saying some really hurtful things at the cost of being honest to himself. And if that's what being honest to yourself looks like, it's not good.
Yeah, you're gonna be a hard person to be in a relationship with. I get it. You gotta take care of yourself. You gotta, like, if it seems like he was kind of starting to shut down, so I understand it's like shutting down. You need to take a break, but, like, there is this delicate balance that happens in relationships where you need to do both things, right? You're trying to look out for yourself. Like, oh shit, I'm shutting down. I need to get myself to an okay place. And at the same time, there's another person, in this case, 2 other people, whose feelings you also have to care about, right? And there's this balance of, like, caring for your partner and caring for yourself, and it needs to be happening at the same time. And Andrew failed the test, right? He really failed the test. It was like, in this moment of conflict, it was like he really was all in on taking care of himself and, like, really couldn't get there for the people he was in relationship with. And so it was in his body, for me, it was in the body language that he had to Ency. That was the thing that sealed the deal for me. It was the pushing her off. Like, he was so activated. He was like, kind of like, don't touch me. And it was like, ooh, that's the kind of person that it's really hard to be in a relationship with a person like that, who, when they get so activated, they're going to really push you away in that kind of almost like mean, cold type of way. It's a really hard person to be in a relationship with, because we're always going to be in stressful situations. We're always, like, we're going to get activated in fights just from life stresses, whatever happens. It's like we're going to get activated, and you need to figure out how to deal with, how to self-regulate, how to self-soothe, how to figure out how to deal with your activation in a way that doesn't harm the people around you. But he was activated, and this was before Ency went off, so this was before he realized that Ency also had her issues. But this is before Ency went off. He was already pushing her away. He was already doing, like, making those that body language to her. He was already shutting her out. And so to me, that was when I was like, I don't think that he's in a place where he can be in relationships with other people, because when he gets into his feelings, he shuts everyone out and pushes people out and just stops looking out for the people around him. And that's a tough person to be with.
So let us know in the comments down below how you thought Andrew could have handled the situation differently, if there was anything else that he should have done that would have made it better. And if you're enjoying this conversation so far, do us a favor and hit the like button on this video. It really helps us out a lot.
Okay, what I will say about Ency in this situation, man, she really botched it. She had a really, really strange and unhealthy way of moving through that conflict. When Jessenia and Andrew were pulled into that conversation, she immediately went into this weird zone of, like, he's validating her by talking to her, which was a very weird interpretation of that. It's like, they dated before, they need to have a conversation. I do think I was kind of weird. I was like, why did Jessenia have to talk to Andrew about this tonight? It's like a party. Everyone's having a good time. He's, like, having a great time with Ency. So I was a little bit like, Jessenia, you couldn't have waited to do this tomorrow when it's like you're all just chilling on the beach. You have to do this in the middle of the party. So I was a little upset with Jessenia for doing that. But with Ency, it was like she was almost just, like, upset that he would even entertain a conversation with her. And it's like, what? Like, she's his ex. She's a human. She has needs too. She deserves to be able to have closure around whatever happened in their relationship. So I don't know why Ency had that weird type of reaction to the fact that they were talking at all. I do think that the first time that she walked up to Andrew to pull him away, all she said was, hey, can I grab you for a second? Which is obviously something that everyone says on the show when they interrupt someone else's conversation. They'll, like, walk up and be like, can I talk to you for a second? Can I grab you for a second? So that was perfectly normal. And he said, like, I need to finish this conversation. I'll talk to you, like, after I'm done. I'll come find you. And she was like, okay. And she walked away. Then she comes back up the second time. And this is when it all goes downhill. Because when she walks up the second time, she's like, Andrew, I don't know what kind of validation you're trying to give her, but if you care about dating me at all, if you're interested in dating me, you're going to walk away with me right now. And you said this best. It was, like, controlling. It was very weird. It was like an ultimatum of sorts, even though they'd only been dating for 2 days. It's like, it was like a threat, right? It's like, if you don't walk away with me right now, I'm going to break up with you. And that's controlling behavior, right? It's like, if you don't do what I tell you to do, this is the consequence. This is how you're going to be negatively impacted if you don't do exactly what I tell you to do. That's controlling behavior. I was like, oh, Ency, that is. If I was Andrew, I would also be like, yep, done immediately after hearing her talk like that. Like, that would be my reaction as well, because it just was, it was too much. Not only because they were only together for 2 days, even if it was 2 years into a relationship, it's too much. You don't do it. You don't control, you don't get to control what people do. You don't get to decide what they can or cannot do, who they can or cannot speak to, and you should not threaten the relationship if they don't obey your every word. And so to me, this was like, line is crossed. You really can't talk to him that way. Then later, when Andrew goes to break things off with Ency, she, starts begging him not to go. And I think that the first time it was fine. And she was like, Andrew, please don't go. Like, stay for the night. Like, don't just, like, jump the ship. Her saying it once, fine. But then when he was like, no, I definitely need to leave for myself. And then she starts, like, pulling on him. That was when I was like, ooh, okay, this is starting to get weird. She, like, puts her arms around him. She's, like, kind of almost, like, physically restraining him. And that's when I was like, okay, now we're kind of getting into a weird zone. She, like, pulls him to the corner and is, like, holding him. You can see on his face is, like, dead in the face, that's when I was like, all right, now it's like she's like kind of forcing herself on him, both physically and like forcing her will on him, like physically restricting him from leaving. I was like, all right, that's not okay. And like, if the genders were reversed, I'm sure people would have a very different reaction. If a man was physically restricting a woman from leaving, I'm sure people would react very, very strongly to the situation. And I think it is just as bad when it's a woman doing it to a man. I was kind of like a little like, all right, Ency, this isn't okay. He's trying to go. You cannot restrict him from leaving. And it's funny because that's why he was leaving her in the first place. It's why he wanted to break up with her, is because she was not letting him have agency in his conversation with Jessenia. She was like trying to control him and trying to stop him from doing what he wanted to do, which was to talk to Jessenia. That was why he was breaking things off with her anyway. So then for her to like repeat it again in their breakup, she was like begging him to stay when he's telling her that he needs to leave, is her continuing to try to control him, right? Continuing to try to manipulate his actions. It's like, if I beg hard enough, you can't leave. Like, if I beg hard enough, if I hold you back, you cannot leave. And you can see Andrew becomes very physically uncomfortable in that situation. And you mentioned this, like when he leaves the situation, it's like all these people try to come up to him and like, are you okay? I think like Danielle like puts her hand on him. She's like, hey, do you want to talk? The boys come up and he's like, no, I'm good. And I actually think that the reason that he left in such a hurry was because at that point, he had then gotten already physically violated by Ency. Like, he was physically getting restricted by Ency in a way that I think would freak anyone out. And so when he was leaving, I think it was more like in that very sudden, like, he doesn't want to talk to anyone, no one touch me. He just like rushed to the car. I think it's because at that point, I think it had gone too far with Ency. I think that honestly, if she had not come in so with that attitude of like, I'm trying to force you to do what I want you to do, instead of listening to what he was needing, if she had not come in so strong and so hard, I think maybe he would have decided to stay, because it does sound like he liked Ency quite a lot. But she came in with this controlling thing that actually was like kind of scary. And at that point, I was like, Andrew, get the fuck out of there. Like, that was at that point, I was a little bit like, all right, no more conversation. Like, she is in this kind of, she's not listening to him. She's not aware or engaging with his needs at all. I think it went too far. And her begging, I think that begging a little bit was her being like sad and just like shocked that it was ending. I think she didn't think it was gonna fall apart that night. I think she was like really, really surprised that he was deciding to leave, and that's why she was begging in part. But I also think that it's a form of control to be like, look how sad I am begging you so much. You can't go. If you left, you would be seen like such a bad person. You can't leave. I'm going to keep saying it. If I say it enough, I can force you to stay. So to me, I was like, ooh, this is too far. If a man was holding me back the way that she was, I would be so freaking scared. And it's not different just because she's a woman. Like, I think that behavior crosses the line.
I'm really glad that you called that out, because I do think that in society, if men do something like that, we're so quick to immediately see it that way. But when a woman sees it, we almost apply like a justification to it. Well, Ency was feeling this way, that means that she was doing this. No means no. Don't put your hands on someone and force them not to leave if they want to leave. It doesn't matter how much you want them to stay. Let them go. And Andrew, I think he was really honest when he broke up with Ency that night, and he just said, the way that this conversation, the way that you reacted to it, just gave me everything I needed to know that this is not the right relationship for me. This beach is not the right place for me. These intense emotions, all of you guys wanting things with me, that's not what I'm here for. I think that he was kind of able to see past the illusion of the beach and just like, whoa, Jessenia and Ency, how much do they really care about me as a person, or how much do they just want something out of this relationship because of the show itself? And for him to know that they both really didn't care about him just based on how they treated him in those final conversations, and honestly how he was treating them, because if he really cared about them, you just wouldn't talk to people that way if you really loved them and like genuinely wanted them to be happy and to have a safe relationship with you. I think that he kind of understood in that point, I'm not my healthiest self when I'm here, and I'm just gonna leave, even if it doesn't make me look good, because this is what I need to do for me. So I'm glad he got off the beach, but wow, what bad dating we're seeing,
What bad dating. It's really bad. I mean, the Ency's whole little train of thought that night was like so many different examples of really bad dating. I mean, originally she was like threatening to dump him, if you walk away with me now, or if you want to date me, you better walk away with me now. It's like she's threatening to dump him, and then 5 minutes later she's like begging him to stay with her. It's like, oh my gosh. I don't know. It feels like people are really mucking it up here on the beach this week, but in general this season. I felt bad for Andrew by the end of it, but I also think that Andrew fucked up. Like I said, I think all three of these people really didn't handle these conversations well at all. I think that Ency's behavior at the end really went over the edge, and that's why a lot of people are focusing on her and not on all the ways that Andrew also was really not handling those situations, those conversations gracefully. He was being pretty selfish and uncaring towards both of those women. They really need to reflect on how things went down. And I kind of have a feeling that Ency hopefully will, because I think the internet is coming down hard on her right now. Like, people are pretty critical of her behavior, and hopefully that will force her to reflect. But Andrew, I'm a little worried, because I think a lot of people are propping Andrew up. It's because he's like Justin. It's like both of them are like fan favorites. They're like hot and like lovable, and everyone really loved them from their original seasons. And I think that a lot of people are giving them a lot of slack or a lot of leeway, even though they keep making these, hurtful errors in their relationships. Like, they keep doing these things that are hurtful to the people around them, but no one's really calling them out on it. And so I'm worried that the two of them are not really going to grow from this season, because like everyone else was so much worse. It's kind of like the two of them are getting out scot-free, and that's true of so many people, like Logan and Kate. Like we said, there's just so many people that it's like all of these bad actors are here on the beach. There's so much growth that everyone needs to do, but it's kind of like only the people who are doing the worst, like Kate or like Ency, are the people getting the slack, or who are getting the heat from the internet and from the beach, when really I think everyone can use some learning from this experience.
Oh my gosh, 100%. I think that's the most spot-on assessment of the season so far. I mean, the finale is next week. It's a 2-week episode, and we will see engagements. I don't think anyone should. I think everyone should go home and reflect on their behavior this season. We're going to see a reunion. We'll see how that plays out. It's not... Why is it becoming so unwatchable? Like, this whole franchise.
I will say that I kind of enjoyed this week of episodes.
I mean, I enjoyed it, but I think when I started to watch it through like a critical lens of like something that you and me can talk about, I was just left with more confusion. And honestly, just seeing, the ageism conversation, we've spoken about this conversation in previous recaps of Bachelor in Paradise.
Yeah.
This is an ongoing problem, and the show is not really doing anything to like meaningfully remedy this.
Yeah.
So, what does it say to continue to
spotlight those narratives?
Exactly. And to watch a show that doesn't want to do anything in terms of like really moving the needle and showing, hey, I'm listening, and we understand that we're putting forward some really bad societal narratives, and we want to change that. Yeah. There's really no changed behavior. They're still acting in bad faith.
Okay, let us know what you all thought about the Andrew, Ency, Jessenia situation. How do you think everyone handled that conversation? Are you all upset at all three of them the way we are? Or, I would like to know. I'm so curious. I know a lot of people are mad at Ency and much more upset at Ency than they are at Andrew, which is part of why I was going in hard on Andrew, because I think we all know from watching Ency's behavior, like,
why it felt so icky. Like, a lot of people had strong reactions for a reason, but I think a lot of people are not paying enough close attention to what Andrew is doing, and that's why I was kind of picking on him. Not picking on him, but just highlighting a lot more of his stuff. But let us know down below. Let's keep this conversation going.
I mean, so Kelly and I feel like whenever we do these recaps, we're starting to rant about it a little bit more. I just can't help it. I just feel like I'm feeling a lot more frustrated when I watch it. How do you guys feel as you're watching the show this year? Do you feel like it's getting better? Do you feel frustrated like we do? Drop a comment down below and let's talk about it. So by the way, if you've watched this point in the video, hi, you've made it. This was a very long one we did, but this means that you're one of the real ones. So if you're not yet subscribed to our channel, hit that subscribe button. We do this every single week and we recap every single episode of The Bachelorette, The Bachelor, and so on. So you should definitely subscribe and follow along. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.